It's February 6, 2024, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Podcast. I'm your co-host, Chris Quinn. Amazing fade, amazing job on the mute switches.
Wow.
That was one of the best. One of the best. You know when you have a true pro.
True pro.
Sometimes I pretend like I can
you did great
trick
last
people.
Week.
Yeah.
No one would have known.
But really, there's no comparison to an actual fade master behind the
it's the real thing.
Slides. Yeah.
It's vinyl.
Yeah. So I'm your co-host.
No sample rate.
And my name is Chris Quinn. And who are you?
I'm Mike Shalau.
And you're also a co-host.
Yep.
Cool.
That's correct.
Yeah. So
you did tell me at the best performing show in a while I was not on, though, so maybe I should
True.
resign.
But there's still one in the can, so we have to see. Maybe that one will perform even better. Maybe we're just up into the right forever.
Yeah, volatile, though.
We're dusting.
Or dusting.
Yeah, just always up and to the right. So, yeah, I guess the show, the Roundtable show with Tom from Goldfinger, I guess it's charting is what I've heard, with a C, not an S.
Yeah, you pronounced the C.
Okay.
Yeah, you
My
got
bad.
You got it.
Just want to make sure. But yeah. So, but I'm interested to see how our art illustration, graphic desigine,
Murderer's Row,
the Murderer's Row of art,
of cool people that we tricked.
Yes,
continues today.
We have two people that I consider cool. Now, I have told people, and this is the truth, that as soon as I think something is cool, it is no longer cool. Mm-hmm. So it might have been.
That's why Cold IPA is doing so well.
Yeah, the kiss of death on the coolness.
As soon as you accept it, it will be over.
Right. Yes, exactly.
You're doing everyone a favor.
Yeah, speaking of which.
You're a real martyr.
Mm-hmm, right, yeah. Some new beer styles that I'm really into. Milkshake IPAs.
New?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for me.
Yeah.
New to me.
You just discovered them.
Yeah. But we're doing a roundtable today. I think we should get right into it. But before we do, I want to mention our book club that we have coming up.
Exciting book club.
Yeah, I had 3 people at our Winterfest event over the weekend come up and talk to me about how much they enjoyed the book, Hops and Glory.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah, they said they really liked it. One just had finished it. So on February 20th, we're going to be sitting down with the author, Pete Brown, to talk about the book. So if you haven't already, go out there and read it, and you can send in any questions that you have. There are 3 copies. Oh, yeah. Hold on. There are 3 copies in the shop that I'm about to make a sign for, I swear. And
you just got them, right?
I mean, come on, man. You said to do it. I mean, feel free to make a sign.
Far be it from me that you should sell the book we're going to talk about in the store that you own.
I know.
What's the point of this podcast? Are we supposed to be promoting stuff? What is this?
Right.
So just vibes.
Yeah, just vibes.
Yeah, good hangs.
So that'll be on February 20th. If you have questions, comments for the author, it's insiders@craftbeertemple.com, or if you want to send a handwritten letter to the author, that would be a first, I believe, and you'd send that to here at the Beer Temple. The address is in the show notes, so like wherever you listen.
A parchment, maybe, that would be like something that would have been on the ship with the cask of IPA.
Ooh.
That would be pretty cool.
A rolled-up scroll, perhaps, in a bottle.
In a bottle. That's the third option.
Yeah, message in a bottle.
Uh-huh. it'll make its way through wherever you are through Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
It'll get to us.
Yeah. It'll just be sitting there one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, a message in a bottle for him would be cool. Mm-hmm. And then we do have a handwritten letter. Another one. We've been getting a lot of handwritten letters lately.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I know how to do handwriting
Oh,
anymore.
okay. Yeah. Well, you can use this as reference when you're I'll let you read it.
Okay. I'll relearn penmanship.
Yeah. So we have a handwritten letter that we can get to today. That's cool. But yeah, I think that's really all the housekeeping I wanted to get through. Is there anything else that I'm missing, Mike, before we introduce our guests?
I think that's everything for the book
Yeah,
club.
I think so. Any non-book club related things, or
I always feel like I should have something like that you told me to say, but I don't.
Okay, I didn't tell you to say anything.
Good, all right.
Okay, yeah.
No,
okay.
then.
Well, then let's introduce the guests in order of seniority. Seniority being how many times you've been on the show. Mm-hmm. I'm very happy because this time it's very easy. We have Mr. Keith Lemcke. What's up, man, of Seibel Institute.
Good evening. Yes, I'm institutionalized. I'm just living the dream to be here.
Awesome to have you back. One of the favorite guests of listeners, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's been a while, man, but good to have you back. How have you been?
Really quite busy. We have courses kicking up again starting next week. So it'll be 6 weeks of students from around the world. The classes have become increasingly international, which is cool. It's like it's gone full cycle. When I started with Seibel back in 2000, we had a lot of people from Latin American countries coming in and a few from North America. Then throughout the craft beer wave, more North Americans, fewer from around the world, and now it's flipped over again as craft brewing seems to be finding its way around the globe, still in a growth cycle more so than the U.S.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that there's a growth cycle somewhere. That's good. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing to hear.
Good.
Growth is good.
Good for those guys.
Yeah.
And gals.
Yes. Keith, any beers you've had lately that have stood out to you for one reason or another?
Actually, I was in Milwaukee in the weekend doing a little bit of homework regarding draft beer and went to Pilot Project up there, and their straightforward Pilot Project Pale Ale, can't remember the actual name of the beer, absolutely terrific body, a little bit of sweetness, the bittering on it was on the money. It was the highlight of probably I guess about 16 beer I had in different locations throughout the city. But
all right.
Of course, they're doing a multitude of different brands there, and it's a beautiful facility.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. They bought somebody else's facility, right?
Lemcke.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, that's cool. Again, thanks for coming on. Next guest is a first-time guest. Wow. So, in also keeping with tradition, you have to introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are and what you do. Take it away.
All right, I guess. My name is Pete. Pete Ternes.
Great start.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I got that part. Middlebrow is my company. I started with a couple buddies. It was 13 years ago, just a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been a long time. We opened. Pardon me?
Bar mitzvah?
No.
Okay. Can't do that for a company.
Stick it out.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So, and our 5th birthday, or our bungalow is our pizza brew pub, and that's been around for 5 years. Also, just a week ago, I guess, January 31st, 2019. So anyway, yeah, I'm Pete from Middlebrow. Excited to be here. Super thankful. I've been listening. Well, but when I used to do things, I listened to this quite a bit.
Yeah.
But in the last 3 or 4 years, I stopped doing anything.
You just sit under a rock.
Yeah.
Okay.
I run in a circle at bungalow and just like wave to people and hope they order another beer.
Right, like those, like the caged tigers you see that look very healthy and happy that just pace around.
Oh, exactly.
In a
like
circle.
I just smile, with really toothy grin and wide eyes.
You're having a good time, right? I'm having a great time. You're having a good time.
He's so happy. He's so happy all the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
How about you, Pete? Any beers you've had lately that have stood out to you? Or anything that you've drank
Yeah.
lately that stood out to you?
I mean, I know you're looking sideways at the wine I brought along, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been drinking a lot more wine than beer lately, but just, I like I told you, I don't do much of anything, so it's our beers and wine principally. But I was in Hudson Valley in October and had some fun stuff. I mean, there's just, I don't know, 12 different breweries up there 20 different breweries up there making cool beer, trying to push the envelope a bit. I had some good stuff from Arrowhead, which I was pleasantly surprised with because, I don't know. It just, the stuff I was drinking was wilds and sours and I don't know. It's like everything just rips your face off or is too oaky or whatever, and it's just nice to find something decently balanced. Yeah. And then honestly, I think I'd give a little nod to I did Dry January, and mostly did it because we decided we needed to do it to survive at Bungalow in January, and so we filled our cooler with I think there was 19 different NA options in the month of January. It was ludicrous. It made the staff nuts, but I tried everything, and it wasn't for me necessarily. I didn't love anything, but I was pretty pleasantly surprised and found myself going back consistently to Notch's hazy IP. I think I forget where they're from anyway, but I didn't dig too deep, but it was like cracking.
Salem, Mass, right?
I thought they were outside Boston, so that must be right. But
a few spots.
Yeah, man, their hazy IPA was just super satisfying you just need it to be satisfying for 5 sips when you're trying to not drink, It's that crack, the sound of it, and seeing a couple of bubbles fly out of the little hole in the aluminum, and then taking a sip or two, you're like, man, it scratches 75-80% of your itch,
Interesting.
And it was pretty good. I was impressed.
Yeah, I've never drank an NA beer because I wasn't drinking a beer and I wanted to have something like it. I've only drank it to see what this NA beer tastes like, and it's a very different setting in that case, versus okay, I'm trying to, I guess it's some of those vegetarian or vegan meats where it's vegan buffalo wings, and it's I've tried that sort of stuff, but always out of curiosity, not out of well, I can't eat a buffalo wing, so I'm going to try one of these vegan ones. And I think, having an IPA any NA beer in that scenario would be, totally different. Accepting all of what I said, I still think that the Guinness one is my favorite that I've had personally. But
sure, I like that one a lot.
Yeah. I don't know if I like it a lot, but it's my favorite.
I think of those options. I like Visitor. Visitor was a good one. Okay.
Yeah, the macro breweries do a great job, making you feel satisfied. All those Heineken also. So many people I know who tend to be NA get into the Heineken and whatever else. Michelob must do one. But.
It's funny. I just
Super
told,
Ultra.
Yeah, that's what it is.
No, I just made that
extraordinarily ultra.
Maximum Ultra.
I just told Keith that we were going to hold off on talking about NA stuff, but now I feel you've teed it up so perfectly. So I retract what I told you during the opening song, Keith, and now we are going to talk about this first because you and I spoke at the Metropolitan. It wasn't their last day, or was it literally their last day? Or maybe the second to last day or last day. One of them. And you were there.
Yes.
Oh, no, it was the last day. It was literally the last day. And you started talking about NA beer, and it was fascinating. And
it was a rant, is what it was.
You know what? It was a rant. I'm not going to lie. It was a rant. It was a rant. And I think I said at the time, you got to come on the show, or I certainly thought it if I didn't say it.
Engage rant.
Yes, engage rant. So that's all I have to say. So now I'll let you loose. No, but you have been doing research, have been talking to people about NA overall. I think specifically, but I could be wrong, about draft. NA, and some of the concerns that you have over the lack of concern that other people have?
In many cases, a complete lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
And to sort of backtrack, my background is I have been involved in professional brewing since 2000, went in to get the diploma at Seibel Institute and just started working there in the year 2000. So I kind of haven't left the school, and always involved in some aspect of brewing education. But the year before I went to Seibel in 2000, I was at Seibel taking a 1-week draft course. And that got me involved in something called the Draft Beer Guild. So the Draft Beer Guild formed in around 1999 and went on through 2005. I was executive director of that. So I was a person that lobbied to bring in breweries and people involved in the draft beer sector towards establishing quality standards for draft beer service. And that is engaging in questions regarding how you appropriately gas beer to make sure that it retains CO2 throughout its service, how you make sure that you don't have foam loss when people are pouring beers. But importantly, of course, is draft hygiene. And draft hygiene has been an issue ever since I attended the draft course in 1999. Back then, a guy named Phil Benstein came in from New Belgium in this course, and he had a raft of research that New Belgium had done and still does to this day that showed at the time about 85% of draft beer was somehow compromised at its point of service. That's what really got me into doing draft beer and draft
And
quality.
the compromises could have been lack of carbonation. It could have been
CO2.
infection. Yeah, it could have been any of that stuff. Yeah,
You betcha. And sort of flash forward a few years ago, I was approached by the Brewers Association to get involved with some of their technical committees, mostly involved in the draft quality committee. And when non-alcoholic beer came up, it presented a really interesting challenge in that already those people who were manufacturing non-alcoholic beer and putting it into bottles or cans knew that it had to be pasteurized or somehow stabilized. And that can be that you could stabilize it prior to closing the package by using, let's say, sulfites, or you can use different forms of filtration, ultrafiltration, what's called sterile filtration, passing it into the bottle or can. And then once you seal it, you hope that bottle or can, especially with pasteurization, flash pasteurization or microfiltration, you hope that bottle or can doesn't have any contaminants in it. The most effective way to actually stabilize alcohol-free beer is to put it into a bottle or can and then put it through a tunnel pasteurizer, because that pasteurizes the entire package.
Right.
Well, with draft beer, even if you were to flash pasteurize or microfilter and then put the beer into the keg, if the keg is contaminated, there is the possibility that the beer would be contaminated. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the case with any beer, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic.
Right.
If the keg isn't clean, you can have contamination. The problem with non-alcoholic beer is it's proven that non-alcoholic beer can carry pathogens, because the lack of the presence of alcohol can allow certain types of pathogenic bacteria to actually be sustained and in some cases grow given the right conditions. So let's say you actually do a great job of packaging your alcohol-free beer in as sterile a fashion as possible into as clean and sterile a keg as possible. The problem then becomes, what about the draft system itself? Because the draft system itself is rarely ever completely clean. Now, the draft system may have standard beer spoilage bacteria, but if there is the presence of pathogens that somehow can find their way into the draft chain, especially into the draft system, onto the coupler, for example, then you have a potential problem of pathogenic bacteria entering into the draft lines and no natural protection through alcohol against that pathogen.
And okay, so next subject is
but there's something else real quick on that note is grain. There are different grades of grain that are utilized for consumption, and the grains that we eat are graded differently than the grains that we drink. And And so that's pretty important too, right? If you're making beer with a grain that we would drink typically, one of the reasons it's okay to utilize grains of a different grade in producing beer or any other kind of alcohol, some spirit, is because you're engaging in this process. And I don't know actually that there's a distinction in terms of like what grain an NA beer producer has to purchase in order to make that sort of above board. Maybe you know.
It gets problematic if especially you don't find some way of stabilizing microbiologically the beer going into the package.
Right.
So you could do, there are people that practice what's called no-boil brewing, right?
Sure.
Where they simply just leave it heated for a period of time, never actually put it through boiling.
Yeah.
And with an alcohol-bearing finished beer, you at least have the capacity of alcohol to be able to kill any potential pathogens. Sure. If you have a no-boil recipe, and that no-boil recipe now manifests itself in this unique new alcohol-free product, holy crap, you're just putting a petri dish into whatever container you're using.
It's pig feed.
Well, and as you mentioned grain, we kind of look, what are the sources of beer spoilage? There are probably 90% of the brewers in North America, because so many small brewers exist here, don't realize that malt is completely covered in bacteria and mold and wild yeast. And every time you put it into the mill, when you open up the bag, dump the bag into the mill, all the dust coming out of it is basically blowing around the room. And you can open up your fermenter that's absolutely perfectly clean and sanitized. In the process of opening up the manway door to add a dry or liquid yeast culture, you're dragging in microbes into that fermenter. You've added the yeast, you close the door, now you rack that nice sweet wort into it, giving whatever yeast and bacteria a lovely nutritional source by which it can live. Now you can put it through your entire brewing process and get to the point where, let's say that beer does have spoilage organisms in it, even if it's an alcohol-free beer. If you get it to be stabilized in its container, that's fine. A bottle or can will last, pretty much the same as any conventional alcohol-bearing beer.
And why is that? Why is it fine if there's a pathogen in it, but it's stable?
If you've pasteurized it.
Oh, if you've pasteurized it.
If you've tunnel pasteurized it especially, that means you pasteurize the entire package.
Yeah.
You can go to the little Latin American food store across the street and buy a product called Malta.
Yeah, Malta Goya.
Malta is very common around the world, and what Malta is basically a thinner version of wort. That has to be pasteurized like you can't believe. The entire package goes through a tunnel pasteurizer and is exposed to an awful lot of pasteurizing units. Pasteurizing unit being 60 degrees C for 1 minute. When you put something through a tunnel pasteurizer, it will spend a lot of time in that pasteurizer just to make sure that everything is killed. Why? Because Malta, being wort, is a rich source of carbohydrate and nutrients. And there are things that can grow in wort, including pathogens, that will not grow in beer. So when you look at non-alcoholic beer, it's actually in many cases not completely fermented wort. You still have the same components of carbohydrates and nutrients that you would find in wort that get passed on to that finished non-alcoholic beer. So those carbohydrates and nutrients offer whatever yeast and bacteria, and again, potential pathogens, a great source of carbohydrate and nutrients in order for them to be able to survive and multiply. When you think about a non-alcoholic beer, again, let's say I'm going to attach it to a keg to my draft system. If I've got any bugs in that draft system, whether pathogenic or non-pathogenic, when I connect up that non-alcoholic beer and now fill the lines with the non-alcoholic beer, when that bacteria is inside the lines, if it's resident, if it is lining the entire of the draft beer line in what's called a biofilm, those biofilms, those bugs basically will have an absolute field day with the degree of many nutrients and carbohydrate that you will find in non-alcoholic beer. And remember that you're not pouring beer 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So you shut down at night. That means that entire time when you're not serving that beer, any stationary bacteria lining your draft lines has the potential of just spectacular growth.
I mean, turn Dry January off.
Yeah.
And that beer you sell 4 of them.
Yes.
On a Friday night or something like that, right?
There is a real fun Instagram site, which is, I believe, called Draft, DRAFT WTF. I can't tell you what WTF stands for. Maybe the initials of the person running the site. But what it is photographs of draft systems.
Wow, that's fun, I think.
Yeah.
It's photographs of draft systems and levels of contaminants in them.
Yeah.
And you guys probably know what a fob is, which is this little transparent plastic device inside of a draft room. There are in essence SCOBY cultures growing in these things. That it's mold everywhere, and in some cases these are still operational systems. So you never know what you're going to find in these draft lines. And
so, what are some of the solutions that are being pitched for safe NA beer on draft?
Guinness and Heineken both have, in essence, tabletop or bar top service systems where they have small 8 approximately liter kegs that go into a dedicated device that sits on top of the bar. And so you have, as they call it, a font, or basically a tower, a draft tower, that's all beautifully illuminated. And they pour you these beers directly into your glass, and that just dramatically limits any possibility of contamination, because every time you change one of these 8-liter vessels, you're also changing the hardware used in its service. You may know, Chris, that Heineken has had for quite some time a freestanding bar system in which you get a hose with every keg. It's a short line of hose that you actually feed up through the tower, close the top on the tower, and now you pour through that absolutely new, pristine section of hose that gets tossed away every time you toss away a keg.
Yeah. I mean, it's smart. It's smart to do it that way. But what about, is anyone trying to figure out ways for a quote-unquote normal draft system to safely serve NA beer? And is there... and if so, what are your thoughts on it? I'm leading you to something you were ranting about today.
Sure.
Do you remember?
Yes.
Stoke the anger, Chris.
Yeah.
And again, you look at a company like Guinness that is such a profoundly draft-centric company. For them, it would make sense to set the standard for non-alcoholic service using a conventional draft system. And from what I'm led to believe, they still advocate basically what would be a direct draw system, and using what are called the DIN standards, which are the long-standing German standards for draft service and maintenance. Under the DIN standards for alcohol-free beer, you can serve alcohol-free beer draft, but you need to clean your draft lines at least once a week, and in some cases they advocate once per day. Okay. So if you can maintain that,
that's a lot.
Now
a lot of expense.
A lot of beer in the lines there.
Economic issue.
But we have to consider the trappings behind this. And when I get together with the other folks on the draft quality group in our teams meetings, and I'm not allowed to tell this, I don't think these are confidential meetings, I have to remind everybody that the same problems you as a bar or restaurant have keeping staff, so do your draft cleaning companies. The people they're hiring are going in there at 11 o'clock at night to 2 in the morning. They are not totally paying attention to what they're doing when they're cleaning lines, or they've been poorly trained, or they're not even a professional draft line cleaner. There's somebody that's picked it up as a business, or it's your bar manager or your new bar staff, your bar back that's training your lines. One of the reasons that
I've never had somebody drain an entire tank of nitrogen
Never.
Never. That's never happened at least once or more.
Yes. I mean, there's just
or beers put back in the wrong order.
There's all sorts of dumbass stuff that goes on, but the most common dumbass thing that goes on is just poor cleaning technique and or neglect.
Sure.
And
bad equipment.
we think of Chicago, of course, and the major markets, the cities where we consume an awful lot of beer, and therefore we can afford to have a lot of draft technicians. Imagine going 150 miles outside of Chicago where you don't have the same amount of licensed accounts and therefore don't have the need for draft technicians. So there are no draft technicians
or
in your
states
area.
where it's not mandated.
You bet. And that's a
Or where
Yes. And let's go even further, that what happens when you start adding unique ingredients to alcohol-free beverages? Does that increase the propensity of different types of bacteria and potential pathogens of growing in beer? There are all sorts of different things we do in North America that are practices that aren't engaged in Europe, where alcohol-free beer is far more plentiful. Yet when you go to bars and restaurants in Germany and you get alcohol-free beer, I can't remember a time when I've seen alcohol-free beer available on draft. Because the brewers there are so aware of all the problems behind this that they're saying, no, if you want an AF beer, drink it from the bottle.
I mean, theoretically, would a kind of two-pronged approach of both chemical castration, for lack of a better term for using the kind of potassium metabisulfite, and flash pasteurization of kegs?
Sure.
Would that keep the beer in there both clean even as it's in contact with the draft system because the chemicals in there?
Think about exactly what you've just said.
Would you?
Because if you just pasteurize the beer that goes in the keg, does it carry the pasteurization on into the draft lines?
Well, if you use the chemical castration, wouldn't that carry it into the draft line?
Do you want to drink chemical castrating materials?
We do all the time. I mean, do I want to? No, but we do.
Because clean labeling is important as well.
Sure.
So when we get to the point where let's say somebody does have a problem, I'm sure we all know people who say, I can't drink draft beer, it gives me a headache, or I can only drink draft beer because bottled beer gives me a headache. We don't know every compound leached by every type of yeast or bacteria based on every potential recipe. There can be different things that are in beer that we simply don't measure, but can cause reactions with people. I've talked on the show before about biogenic amines. So we have, with all the different recipes we have available on the market, it means that if we have different spoilage organisms, of which there are dozens, if not hundreds, in all the variants of different recipes, we will eventually get to the point where people are posting on their Yelp accounts a trend of information that when they go and have a non-alcoholic beer at a specific bar or draft, people are going, yeah, you got sick too? Man, I tell you, I not only had a headache, I was living on the toilet for 2 days.
I'll be honest, that happened to me.
Really?
4 or 5 years ago, I got into a kind of clever NA drink by a brewery that we all love, and I went back and got it. And I was sick every time, and I just didn't care because, for whatever reason, right? And I started learning some of this stuff a few months ago when we started researching NA beers and how to make them well. And we talked to a very cool German brewer who I don't think is in Chicago anymore. But anyway, learned a lot of the stuff you're talking about, and it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, holy shit, that's what I was dealing with. I'm certain of it. This particular line or this keg was, it was wreaking havoc on my system. And I mean, I wouldn't bother with a draft NA beer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the future here is like alcohol is bad for us in all these ways and good for us in a couple tiny ways. And so the true sustainable future is like, and kegs are better than cans and glass. And so we got to get tunnel pasteurizers that are enormous, or something like that. Yeah, but like for now, cans are nothing, There's just,
I would think so.
I can't imagine.
Now, what about this sort of like high frequency vibrations or whatever that they've got going on that can clean lines?
This is a different matter completely. There has been a technology on the market called a BLM or BLM 2000 that was on the market in 1999 when I first started getting involved in draft. They are actually used in the state of Pennsylvania legally, and there's degree of ubiquity to their use in Pennsylvania.
And what are they?
It is a device about the size of your little finger that you strap onto. Thank you for the visual aid, except it's radio.
For the audio medium.
Yes. You strap onto each of the draft lines, and it is supposed to induce a signal, and I do believe they claim it's some form of radio frequency signal that keeps beer moving. Well, the newest iteration of that, there are some 3 systems that are available. The newest iteration, and my trip to Milwaukee was specifically to go back to 2 places I know use this, is something called Draft Guard. And with the Draft Guard system, they say, no, it's different than BLM. And I'm getting closer to having Draft Guard produce information that would give some degree of satisfaction to people who are brewing technicians, brewing technologists. Because it's one thing to say, when you put this device onto your draft system, you can now go up to 12 weeks without cleaning your draft lines. And being up in Milwaukee, I arrived on the early morning train and went to Explorium just outside the train station. The owner there, Mike Doble, has had one of these systems and gives a testimonial on the website. That's how I went up there the first time a few months ago. So I went in not telling nobody nothing and sat at the barns and said, can I get 4 tasters, please? 11 o'clock in the morning right after they opened, every one of those beers was perfect. No sense of contamination to it whatsoever. And Mike says, basically, I will do whatever Draft Guard tells me to do as far as cleaning frequency goes. But when they came out with this with an 8-week suggested cleaning cycle, I had to say to the representative, can you tell me what's magic about 8 weeks? Because if what you're saying about the technology is true, that it keeps whatever form of microbes in beer from attaching to the inside of the lines and keeps them basically suspended. So if there are microbes that are served with every beer, what happens at week 9? And he goes, funny you should mention that. We've just extended the cycle to week 12 because that's how long we've shown that our results indicate that there is no growth coming out of these systems over and above what you would consider a clean draft system.
Then I said to him, what about week 13?
Well, but
and he said, what do you know? New research.
But
Give me a minute.
This becomes the issue because people that are working for breweries, with the Brewers Association Draft Quality Group, have approached Draft Guard to say, it's one thing to send us your PowerPoint deck showing these 2 studies that you've got through 2 universities that were done on water. How have you tested this on beer? And they go, well, we're going to be working on that. We're going to provide you stuff. And it's 2 years ago, I met the guys from Draft Guard and said precisely that. Look, you want me to tell people that I think it's a good idea to at least try it. There's a certain format of testing you actually have to produce for us to be able to trust that what you're doing is testing appropriately. To give you an idea of how interesting this is, on LinkedIn, they have been posting ads where they say 86.2% cleaning rate, 94.1% reduction.
The hell does that mean?
Well, it makes me go, wait, you guys say you can't come out yet with technical results, but you are literally into the single decimal points. Now, how you are doing this is kind of beyond me, and it leads me to believe that you're doing some accurate testing, and that could, in fact, be the case. So they actually have been picked up. Their system has been picked up for installation and sale by Perlick, who are, of course, Perlick and Micromatic, the 2 largest of the draft companies. So Perlick has a degree of faith in them. And I really want this to work.
So you think this has some potential, this thing where it vibrates it and somehow that makes it okay?
And this isn't really sort of vibrating. What they claim is, and I've actually remembered my science class days from way too many years ago, pure water does not conduct electricity. Any impurities in water allows electricity to pass through water. And the reps is basically, here's the principle, that with water or any liquid that has impurities, you can induce a current in it. And what they do is they introduce a very low power, what's called sine wave, in the actual liquid in the line. So that's what keeps it moving.
It's a minute electrical current that like keeps it.
Yes. And
Wow.
even with that, you go,
Crazy.
okay, what could
So the
this
electrons
potentially
just
what could
bounce.
this potentially do for foam? If your beer is carrying a live yeast culture, with which some Hefeweizen yeast may do,
Sure.
what would it do to? But I mean, these are individual issues that
Sure,
each brewery needs to be able to try. In the meantime, does this work with the majority of beers? Now, you think about how revolutionary this could be for draft beer. If you cut it down to 12-week cleaning cycles, it means you have reduced by a factor of 6 the amount of cleaning chemicals you would need to use to clean your lines on an average basis.
Oh, yeah.
About 2-3 months
expensive.
ago, one guy died, 2 people hospitalized when they ingested draft cleaning solution.
Yep.
Because as you know, if you don't take that solution out of your lines, it picks up the color of the lines. So your bartender comes in, goes to pour it. 2 ounces of it kind of look like light-colored beer. And again, I had this at a bar in Milwaukee on the Sunday as I was about to board the train. I heard an ESB, young lady goes to pour it, and it looks basically like a really light pills with a haze to it. And she goes, well, that's not the ESB. And I said, have you had your lines cleaned? And she goes, how do you mean? I say, that could be draft line cleaner. Because nobody had told her that the beer had been changed in the lines. And she was fascinated by the idea. She kept it aside and smelled it, says, doesn't smell like draft line cleaner. And it turned out that it was a light beer that she was putting on. But unless she had been conscious of it, and the fact that it was daylight instead of being during the evening,
Right.
would have been harder
No,
to spot,
I've heard it.
right?
I mean, it happens infrequently, but it happens.
So there's
not a good way to go. I would
there's an
want to
incentive.
drink caustic.
There's an incentive for the draft guard system to work if you're not a draft line cleaning company.
Well,
Big draft line keeping us away.
Big
from
draft
Sonic
line.
Action,
Big draft
as
line,
always.
Keith's not allowed to talk for the rest of the show, I think. So no, thank
Have
you.
you met Carl Castle?
Yeah.
You guys listen to NPR, but your voice is just like it's crazy. man.
We
It's
just
not
let-
even
that's why
my
we let
real
him-
voice.
We got to get it on.
We just let
on
him
our
cook.
voicemail. Yeah.
Okay, so
Pete's not around right now.
let's
He's cleaning a draft line.
take a break, do a reset. I'm going to get another beer. I'm going to get the handwritten letter, and then
Make sure it's not draft cleaner, Chris.
no, I will be holding. You're going to read it whenever we read
Your
it.
beer, not the letter.
Oh no, you're going to get me.
I
a
can't
beer.
read.
Oh, that's right. You can't read or write. Okay. All right. That
We
answers.
finally revealed I'm
Yeah.
illiterate.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll come back in like 5 minutes with more of the Beer Temple podcast. We're back. We're back, baby, with the Beer Temple podcast. I'm here with Mike. We're also here with Pete Ternes. I have to admit, I always thought it was Ternes. I'm glad to hear
Everybody
you
does.
say that.
Thank you.
And Keith Lemcke. We just heard about all sorts of great things with NA Draft, but it's time now to get to a letter, right?
Yeah.
It's a postcard.
It is a postcard. I believe it's the Queen.
Oh,
Rest in peace. It is Queen Elizabeth II towards the Art Institute of Chicago. This person has wonderful handwriting and addresses it Serge, Mike, and Chris. Serge top billing.
I guess
so.
should
We're
Serge
not,
read
we're
it
not
then?
going to read
Whoever
it.
gets
yeah,
that billing
Serge
should
will
read
read
it. Serge will read it.
Wait, the Queen wrote this?
No.
Yeah, the Queen.
Before she, yeah.
It takes us a while. We got a backlog of letters.
Yeah, Royal Mail sent that.
Serge, Mike, and Chris. This is the Queen. No. I'm writing seeking counsel. I'm headed to England for a wedding in April. A friend of my partner's, and we're hoping to tack on some beer tourism. We'll have a couple of days around London, and then we're thinking of taking the train over to Brussels after that. Any recommendations from past visits? Must stops, places to skip, etc. Open to any and all suggestions. Dustily, Andrew F. Wonderful penmanship from Andrew.
Yes. Very interesting. It just so happens.
I just got the tie into why it's the Queen.
Yes.
Okay.
I am
Well
going to
done,
be
Andrew.
going to London on a whirlwind tour. It's okay. Next month.
Not bad.
I was thinking about taking the train to Brussels for one day and getting over there, but
So you
I don't
wrote this
know.
letter?
right.
A friend of Margaret's is getting married.
Yeah, yeah. So I've got a few places that I think that are worth hitting up in London.
I've never been to London. I've been to Brussels. So
Okay,
please give the London Rex.
sure.
TGI Fridays.
Yep.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
TGI Fridays. Well, I have to. I'm trying to think of the names of these specific bars. This might have to be continued until
Taco Bell
next
Cantina.
week. Yeah, I didn't read the letter until right now, or I probably would have had them
Great.
ready to go. I think the White Horse Pub is a really awesome real ale.
That's where
Pub.
Bruce Springsteen started, right?
Yes. I think for the new school stuff, the Colonel is a must visit. I think they are making my personal favorite beer. I would say you have to hit. There's like 2, I think, Harvey's pubs in London, so you should hit one of them because they have tied houses, and Harvey's still has the Brett, the British fungus in their beers.
So like a white whale of mine is to drink it on cask there.
That's what I'll be doing, baby. That's one of the things. I'm going with Mike Siegel. He and I are going for 2 days, ripping and then ripping back. He's going up to Burton with Ron Pattinson to try to do.
And you're not going with him. What's
think
wrong?
they're trying to.
Are you okay? Who's this crew? Is this?
Yeah, they're trying to get into the Bass archives and see what they can mess around with up there in Burton.
Bring the pod equipment, dude. What are you doing?
Right. Wasn't invited to that part of the trip.
Shocking.
I'll be just fine.
Yeah.
So in London, that's what I would say. Oh, also you got to find a place that has Tim Taylor, landlord, on cask. I would say like those are the 3 things that I would be like kind of the most interested in. If you want to visit the Fuller's Brewery, that's pretty classic. It's a really cool tour. It's right in London. And you can get, London Pride and ESB and all that stuff there and see the original coppers and stuff like that. So if you're going to do a tour, I would definitely recommend Fuller's. That's me. Anyone else got anything?
Yeah, around.
Yeah.
If you look for the really shard of glass, tall-shaped building that's called the Shard, that is in the Southwark area of London. Which is by Burroughs Market. So just heading to that location allows you to triangulate to a lot of smaller breweries. There are a series of small breweries under the railway tracks in what used to be automotive shops. So you can go in there, basically hit 2 or 3 breweries back to back, and then there are great beer bars in that neighborhood as well. It's very much turned into the focus of the craft brewing community. The George Pub at the George Hotel in the shadow of the Shard is also just a great place to have a beer. Ran into John Hall of Goose Island there by accident one time. It's a real terrific area, and while you're down there, if you're keen on not drinking for a couple of hours, is to go to the Tate Museum. Like most of the museums in London, it's free, and it is contemporary art, and it will just blow you away.
Very cool.
Very cool. I would just say overall, get cask ale while you still can.
And if they're going to Brussels, you got any suggestions there? I would suggest your sister company,
The Beer
the
Temple?
Beer Temple
Yeah,
in Brussels.
the Beer Temple there. Yep. I mean, I'm assuming
I think it's Day Beer Temple.
Oh, debut.
Yeah.
BIER.
the Beer Temple.
Yeah.
Yes.
I sent you a picture of
you
that.
could go
when I was
there.
right?
Probably.
Yeah, of course.
Several people have. Yeah, no, Brussels is cool. I mean, I think you have to go to Motor Lambic.
Yeah, I had a great time at Motor Lambic. That was
either one.
That's kind of chalk, but
Yeah?
honestly, one of the best beers I had the entire time I was in Belgium was like essentially cask lambic from at Motor Lambic.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
was youngish lambic that was just delicious.
Yeah.
I never had experienced that before.
Yeah, Motor Lambic, Cantillon is easy to get to. De La Seine is in a different part of Brussels, but that could be a fun place to go to and get super fresh Terrace Bulba and Zinnebeer and stuff like that.
One of my great regrets is that we missed it when I was there. We had scheduled this like 2 Michelin star restaurant for lunch that we thought would take 2 hours maximum, and it took 3.5 hours to get through all of these courses at lunch. And it was like a Sunday, and they closed at like 2 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be in Brussels for a day and you're looking to do beer, I would say
the meal was delicious, but
yeah.
don't go to
the other thing is there's beer all over the place in Brussels, and you can get bottled beer and stuff like that pretty much anywhere. But yeah, and then London. I mean, just go into a London pub and try to get some, look up on the camera site and see what are some good accredited. Actually, find stuff that is cask mark. And if it's cask mark accredited, then they're taking care of their cask system and stuff like that. But yeah, there's some other fun, little craft breweries that are there. But for my money, the Colonel is still one of the originals and still where it's at for me. So I will let you know when I get back. Honestly, will be before you go, and I'm sure I will brag to Mike about how great it was and why I missed my flight.
Get a tour of the Burton
stuff.
Union with Steve Mastney and run on top of it. Do all the things that tourists
Did you not
do.
hear? It's been decommissioned.
No, we talked about it on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been decommissioned.
Right.
Sadly. Did you hear that, Keith?
Yeah. I've actually been to that facility in Burton, the Bass Coors yards, and it's quite cool. But yeah, the whole thing is basically just being shut down at Bass Coors. I can see we're closing down. Unfortunately, that Burton system would make economic sense, but my God, I think the UK has always underestimated the power of beer tourism. I talked with an ambassador from the UK at an event over here and mentioned beer tourism. And, we have a lot of people coming over to the pubs. Well, no, I mean, you have people also coming over there specifically to try specific beer. Oh, really?
I visited there to go to Burton and see the unions. I mean, I'm a weirdo, but I did it.
Right, countries always. Let's go ahead.
Yeah. So it's been decommissioned. I had again, Mike Siegel reached out and tried to ask about it, and they're 100% already decommissioned, and didn't even do a last brew on it. Didn't a ceremonial last brew or something. Just tear it down.
We assume they're going to be much more sentimental about things than they actually are. You find that in a lot of older places.
Yeah.
Where oh, it's so old. How could you? It's because America's only a few hundred years old. They're just this happens. This is what we do.
Right. Well, I mean,
it was like that in China. Not to compare the two.
One of the things that is going on with Bass over there, and I'm reading about in Hops and Glory.
Available at the Beer Temple.
Available at the Beer Temple is when Bass sold to AB or InBev at the time. They just wanted the brand, and they had this archive of hundreds of years of Bass, and we want that. No, we don't want that. Don't make that part of the deal. We just want the current recipe and the rights to brew it. Yeah, and then that all stayed with the brick and mortar, which was then bought by Coors. So now Coors owns the archives, and AB InBev owns the rights. So that almost guarantees that nothing will ever happen with it, because it's what a mess.
Right.
But again, I don't know how many people overall care about it, but still a bummer. But anyway, a lot of fun stuff to do in London.
And if anyone out there listening has other suggestions for Andrew, write them in.
Yeah.
Send them to us.
Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably Prince Andrew, right? Oh, bad news for him recently. So,
of things historic and antiquated, I would suggest watching what's happening with the Museum of Beer and Brewing in Milwaukee, which is now got a physical presence. That's one of the things I was looking at in the weekend because Seibel donated a lot of stuff to it.
Nice.
So it should be up and operational probably within the next month. It's in a community that has, I believe, 3 or 4 other breweries immediately surrounding it, a little south of the city, and it might be worth a stop for anybody going up there.
Cool.
There's also a pub called the Seven Stars in London, and it's from like 1602.
Damn.
And that's there's some soup. It's not the
There's great pubs, right?
There's some super duper duper old ones. I mean, it's not too often that you go into a over 400-year-old pub that's been a pub that long. So it's not just the building is that old. It's been a bar for 400 years, which is so awesome.
I've been to England since college, so 20 years. But so I don't have anything that wise or that interesting to say, other than if you make it to Oxford, there's one of I'm sure you can just Google this, but there's a pub down a random alley that you go into, and it's got like 6.5-foot ceilings, and it's got every single tie, like the little tiny triangle ties that are like miniaturized because they needed to fit all of these ties onto the ceiling and the wall. And there's no music in this place, but the walls and the ceilings are just covered in these little ties of Oxford graduates from, hundreds of years ago. And like you're kind of like creaking your neck and sit down with a beer, and like there's carpet, right? It's one of these joints that like
the carpets were
the beer.
surprising to me.
I don't even know. I mean, this is 20 years ago. I don't know what beer they serve, but it's just kind of the pub culture there is just hard to beat.
It's the best, I think.
There was a pub that got bought. The building got bought by a developer. It was a historic site in the neighborhood, and they started knocking it down, and the neighborhood sued them. And because it was a historic site of public gathering in the neighborhood, they had to reconstruct the entire building and make it exactly as it was before and reopen it as a pub.
That's funny.
That doesn't happen here. So
No.
Find some of those places.
No. Well, thank you very much, Andrew, for the letter, and we'll have some follow-ups if you continue to listen. See how I get them to keep listening to the show?
That's right.
I don't give them the answer all at once.
That's why you're the best in the biz.
That's true. That's why I'm the best in the biz.
In this room, at least. You're
top
the
100.
Yeah, sure.
top 100 recording of all time.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. That we talked about that off air, by the way, so nobody knows it then. But what should we go to?
No one knows what we're talking
what should we go to next, Mike?
I did say when you asked me this off air that we should talk about the numbers.
Yeah. You don't
I
want
think I
to?
changed my mind.
Why?
I think we have people here who can speak better to the other thing we were going to talk about.
Talk about it.
The kids.
The kids.
The kids
these
and what
days.
they're drinking.
Okay.
And how, you had people in here recently, and it's like kind of spurred this.
Yeah.
A little bit younger generation than
Yeah.
yourself or myself. And they're at the beer temple, and yet they're preferring to order tequilas and sodas or other alcoholic beverages.
Not a lot of beer was ordered. We had like a big crew roll in, like 150 people came in.
Just a walk-in?
No. Yeah, thankfully. It was like a charitable gala that was looking for a place to do an after party.
Sure.
And they had contacted us and said, can we swing by? And we're like, yeah, come on in. So they were younger, but they were, they wanted to be out. They wanted to, have a good time. And they were drinking. And some beer, but not much. It was a lot of vodka sodas. It was a lot of tequila soda. And the one that I was kind of laughing about was there were a couple people who were calling a high-end tequila and Sprite.
Do you guys even have Sprite? I wouldn't
We
think
do.
about that before.
Yeah, we do have Sprite. And it was just interesting to see these people...
And what's the age range, you think, of the people that were calling these drinks?
Older 20s, maybe like early 30s.
Not like 21-year-olds, right? Like,
I don't know. That'd be my guess. Yeah, maybe older 20s. Yeah.
Yeah, late millennials, early Zoomers, right?
Yeah. That's how I always think of people in generations. That's how I like to box people.
Yeah, me too.
I only see generational.
They don't get out of that box.
Yeah, no.
That's all we are.
Yeah. So
But I mean,
that's why my brother and I don't get along at all. We hate each other because I'm Gen X.
You're like a young
and he's
Gen
a millennial.
Right,
You know,
he's
I
an
know we're
elder
only a few years
millennial.
apart,
Yeah.
but that doesn't matter.
Millennials.
well, I'm a
hate Gen
boomer,
X.
so that's
Yeah.
how we get along. So
You're a boomer at soul, at heart. Yeah, you're an old soul.
old soul.
Yeah,
Well, I think like
Keith's
part of
greatest generation. I think.
You bastard.
very
a compliment.
very rude.
Yeah, the greatest.
Yeah, the greatest.
I just wonder, you guys are talking about this like we used to talk about astrology. You're typifying your individual personal characteristics based on
yeah.
when
We're
you were born.
joking.
It's either that or birth order.
Yes,
You know?
yes,
Right?
yes.
Or blood type if you're in Japan.
Right.
But I think
okay.
that, I mean, there is something too, like that. A lot of the craft beer boom was driven by the consumption habits of young Gen X and elder millennials, right? Not to be like Sagittarius or
Yeah.
Capricorns or whatever, but
Yeah.
like that age range where people that like it was a lot were made by that age range and marketed to that age range, and we might have totally be whiffing on younger generations and not connecting with their value sets at all.
Well, a lot of what I hear also is how unhealthy beer is. I mean, I hear it a lot. Like, oh no, I can't. I don't want beer. It's so unhealthy for you. And that's something else that you and I have also talked about recently. Keith, is like, I know we're probably a little biased, but as you put it, it's like you're talking about something made from cereal
It's made
grain,
from cereal. Yeah.
versus something made from just like
Sugar in the
Sugar.
case of seltzer.
Yeah.
And we're actually going through this amongst the Brewers Association groups because within the subcommittees of the Brewers Association have individual interests. But every now and then they put us all onto one big topic, and that is TTB and FDA are reconsidering what should be on labels for alcoholic beverages. And everyone's kind of getting tense because if they're going to insist that we have to put calories and carbohydrates on every product that we produce, regardless of the size of the brewery, carbohydrate and calorie testing can run anywhere from $200 to $250, and then if it needs to have an even wider profile, it can get up to $2,000 per beer for testing. As a small brewery, that's quite onerous, and people are like, we should really be fearing that they're going to ask us to put nutrition on everything. And as you say, Chris, I look at it from a rather Germanic and a Charlie Bamforth way of looking at this, is that beer is made from cereal grains. And we still aren't looking at non-alcoholic beer from a total nutritional profile, which is that for beers that are fully fermented, depending on the organism you're using, the organisms themselves produce vitamins and nutrients, plus the fact that it's corn and rice and barley coming out of the ground with zinc and magnesium and selenium. And not to say it's in scads, but it is there. And if you're someone that chooses to drink an alcoholic beverage, I don't think there's a healthier alcoholic beverage for you to choose to drink than beer.
Red wine's pretty damn good too. You know, get a lot of antioxidants, anthocyanins. If you look at all the blue zones, as like ridiculous and trendy as that might be,
Yep.
they're covered in black beans and purple potatoes and red wine, and these are all food items with a ton of anthocyanins and other antioxidants.
Yeah, sure.
And that's a pretty seriously good thing to drink from a health standpoint. But we're talking not about the components of alcoholic beverages. We're talking about the alcohol in alcoholic beverages, and that's why people who are younger are avoiding these beverages, because they view the alcohol itself as some kind of issue.
So I think what I have heard anecdotally and also in person is not that though, because yes, I think alcohol consumption is down, but I've also heard it's people saying, no, I don't want beer, I'll take some High Noon because beer's so unhealthy, but I'll take this High Noon. That's kind of what I was referring
there's like a
to.
carby.
I think,
I
I think the overall trend
calories,
is true that younger generations are drinking less alcohol. They have other ways.
That's right.
They have other ways and other legal
for sure.
ways to alter their states. But I think that the carbohydrate thing is is huge. Like it's been 3 years or 5-10 years of keto diets and paleo diets and all this other and like all this stuff where the carbohydrates and sugar are the enemy right currently.
Sure.
And that ebbs and flows, right? We'll
Sure.
figure out like, oh, they're not that bad. You just got to eat these ones. And
So
like,
here's the question then. It's like the question I have is, in my mind, very jaded, is so what do you graduate from if you're drinking a high noon? So if you're drinking beer, I think you can graduate. If you're drinking, wine, you can graduate to different types of. I don't know how many young people are drinking wine, but but there are some certainly
more
who are.
these days,
More
but still
are,
not that many.
And if you're drinking even, rum and Coke, you can graduate. Like, where does that lead to? And it's, I don't know. It just seems like
I don't know if that exists as much as it used to. Like, we definitely saw it in beer where there was, like, the life cycle of a beer drinker where you start off and you have that one beer that gets you into craft beer, and then you try all these different styles, and you tried IPAs and double IPAs, and then you get into, like, Belgian beers. And, like, that was a thing that we saw happen to a lot of people that got into beer 10 years ago. And then the joke of, you come back around, you just want a Pilsner. That doesn't happen to people as much anymore.
Well, also with other categories, it's just not relevant yet.
Right.
But yet is a really important word here because we're looking at high. If you're looking at high noon right now, just think about how many ridiculous brands the macro companies put out before, or in the early days of craft beer. Like there were a dime a dozen. You'd have a random thing by Miller every 2 years, and I'd be drinking it in the forest at 13 or 14 or whatever.
SEMA is just hard Sprite.
But, yeah, right. But I mean, you graduated because craft beer came around. But craft seltzer is probably only knocking at the door. It's in someone's basement right now or in someone's brain right now. And, and like natural wine and other kind of cutesy wine brands are coming up. And same goes with probably other alcohol, RTD alcohol.
I guess I was always searching for something elevated in some sense. I didn't really know what craft beer was when I started.
What does elevated mean in that context, though? Is it simply that it tastes more refined or something, or was it how they were telling you they made it and how they were telling you what they were telling you their values were?
At that age, probably. Well, I don't know about if it went that far, but something that I saw as a higher quality product, and that could have been when I started drinking Bass Ale because I was like, oh, okay, this is British stuff, really old, or what's this, and what are these, half and halves, or black and tans, whatever you want to call it. Oh, okay. Like I was probably underage at the time when I started doing that, but I was looking. I would buy books, trying to I bought a wine book early on. I had a beer book where it was just like just looking at stuff and trying to figure it out. But I did that about other stuff as well, foods generally. I just don't. I'm just curious where the person who's drinking these like seltzers and these drinks that are out now, does that person, maybe most people have never had that to begin with, and
I think you and I and probably everybody at this table came after craft beer as a hobby. It was a hobby that also was a social occasion, and at the time of craft beers, the best years, I think, were about 20 to 30 years ago when newer breweries were coming out with newer types of beers, especially, pale ale begat IPA, begat double IPA, begat using IPA. Hops in brown ales. And so at the time, what was the same thing in wine? There wasn't. There was variety in wine, but wine was typified by the grape and by the region. Distillates, the variety in distillates was nothing 25 years ago. And what we did was introduce the idea that you can take that vertical category of just beer and, man, you can make it into an experience.
That's right.
But then the winemakers went, hey, why can't we put this into bourbon barrels? Of course you can. Why don't we blend? Well, you probably should. every category of culinary arts has benefited from what we created in craft beer, which is differentiation and consumption as an experience.
That's exactly right. I mean, and that's it's critical here because if you think about, like I talk all the time about how natural wine is just behind craft beer, and it's just behind craft beer.
Yeah.
Now it's the wine cycle is a 1-year cycle, and craft beer is a 1-month cycle, or beer
Yes.
production is a 1-month cycle. So it's going to take a lot longer for it to catch up. But when you're talking about High Noon or any other kind of shitty,
You could say
can I
it.
swear?
Yeah,
you're
Great.
fine.
Can I curse?
Yeah.
Okay, when you're talking about any,
We know what you meant by swear.
okay, swear. I just don't know if that's like
Just don't take the Lord's name
is that
in
like a
vain, please.
Zoomer
Yeah.
term? Swear. Anyway,
Swear? No, I don't think it's just a word.
You tell me.
yeah, I am the fake young guy.
Yeah.
I have a lot of young employees. But all this is to say, what High Noon will do, or where it will go, if it's going to survive, I guess is a good. It could just fizz out, and
Sure.
that's probably what it will actually do.
Yeah.
To use a fun term, fizz. But
Nice.
what will actually probably happen isn't that you're not going to get this craft beer version of seltzers, but you're going to get a cuter brand. Sure, fine. You're going to get an experience at a local level, and you're going to get more local ingredients. You're going to get beet sugar, and you're going to get some addition, some inclusion like strawberry syrup from a farmer. That's the kind of stuff you'll start to see if this category is going to have any legs going into the future, and people creating experiences around it. I do know of a place that's about to open in Pilsen that is liquor forward and is creating this sort of experience around liquor and seltzers and fun drinks that are not beer and not wine and not like hard liquor. It's not a distillery necessarily, and who knows if it'll work out. But the big point here is the experience is critical. Craft beer it made you think about where your ingredients came from. It made you think about the person who lived 3 blocks away from the brewery, who showed up every day and worked in the garage and was working the bar at night. And that kind of energy, that's what either you'll see that happen in all these new categories and they'll grow and people will graduate from High Noon into these kinds of drinks, or you won't. And I'm actually thinking you probably won't. I think beer and wine lend themselves to this more so than like seltzer.
I don't think it's a matter of graduation either. I think it's simply moving to a different product just to be able to say, okay, I tried High Noon grapefruit. It was good. Now I make a choice. Do I stay within High Noon because I know the grapefruit was good, or look for another brand of grapefruit? And instead of grapefruit with vodka, how about grapefruit with tequila? I know I like grapefruit. Why would I stick with High Noon?
And how about Pawpaw?
Yeah.
You know?
It's the same with music. I obviously am substantially older than you people, but remembering
Greatest
a time
generation.
before college radio, because college radio was a turning point very much for music.
Yeah.
Airwave radio was all dominated by record companies and payola and organized radio station networks, and then college radio came out with bands nobody heard of, who you had to share cassette tapes of their music, and it created musical differentiation and different tastes. And now nobody really dominates. No one type of music dominates the music scene, and I don't think one type of music automatically dominates individuals. Instead, I see a lot more diversity in what people listen to. I got buddies that listen to almost nothing but heavy metal, with the exception of jazz and Taylor Swift. And it's like, holy crap.
Right.
So,
So maybe the days of just having like I'm a Bud Light guy or whatever it is. Now, I think I could see it going in the way that you kind of mentioned.
Just to be clear, I don't think it's going to go that way, but I think that's the option available to.
I think I've seen at least one example that I could see being duplicated. That's a different way that could go, which is localized, but more localized in a kind of community culture, like collective, where people get behind a hard iced tea or where the quality isn't necessarily better, but it's made locally.
That's right. I agree.
And it's branded as local.
Right.
And whatever it does. And now, when I say branded local, I'm not saying like Cubby Bear Seltzer. I'm saying something about it connects to the people as being from there somehow.
312 of seltzers,
Something. I mean, it might not even need to be literally there. It's just something about it. People connect, like Malort. Malort, I guess, has the flag, but Malort is identified as Chicago, even though it doesn't have Chicago in the name necessarily. So I could see something like that happening, and I've seen at least 2 instances. Both are with like distillate, though. It's where that has happened, and young people have gravitated towards it. So that's something I could see.
I don't know if the next generation values physical locality in their products as much as elder millennials and like younger Gen Z do.
And maybe those are the people I'm seeing drinking it.
When you look at like what how they respond to like poll questions like that, they value much more like global impact and things that like align with their like whatever their spoken values are, and they don't view it as much as it like, well, this is made down the street. It exists in the local economy in a more tight way than like a macro version of it does. They think more like, oh, well, this company donates this amount to charity that I care about. And I think...
Right. So now let's have them air freight it over.
We all live big, like a lot of our lives online, but every successive generation is going to get more and more and more living their life in a digital, less physically grounded, connected space. And I think they're going to care less about the fact that this thing is made locally and the impact that has on like all the local agriculture, the local
I think they're being sold that doesn't matter.
Or the opposite is true. I think I agree with your first point, which is that they're going to be increasingly detached from the people around them, and it's going to encourage them consistently to like find some balance in their life and focus on what's near them. I also want to make a quick point, which is that 10 years ago when we were kind of at the beginning of this company and trying to build business plans and stuff to make it move from a project to a company, we were seeing the same surveys, and millennials didn't actually care about local issues in polls. They cared about global issues, and we were sort of torn about the local charity donation thing that we did, because we thought, should we be focusing on water in the continent of Africa, or should we think about local issues? And the polls all suggested we should do the former. Instead, we did the latter. And I think I don't know why that worked for us. Maybe it didn't work for us. But do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, totally. Like, I think what that issue is particularly interesting to me, whereas we've like in that giving to charity thing, you can now like use data to optimize your dollar for the greater good of the world. But and of course that's a good thing, right? But it's not what charity has ever been about, right? Like, if you do that, you can feel a little good about, like, yeah, of course, mosquito nets for people in high malaria areas in Africa is a thing I want to donate to, but you also want to feel the connection with the people and the things you're donating to. I don't know.
It's complicated, because charity as an idea is sort of like this. It gets complicated. Like, are we saviors, right? But like,
or just to completely abstract the idea of what it means to be charitable into like, I have X dollars, I need to maximize them. It's like, well, also charitable could be you can connect with the people around you and give your time or your emotional ability or whatever it is.
For sure.
Will McCaskill.
And I think this actually gets dead on. And I think it gets right back to the bigger point here, which is the more people, the next generations, as they become increasingly detached from each other, which seems inevitable. I don't think anyone can really disagree with the inevitability of that. They will increasingly, they'll have to find ways, they're humans, they'll have to find ways to connect with each other, and whether they call it charity or sort of volunteerism or whatever, or some, I don't know, God, we're probably using crazy terms 50 years from now, but the point here is I think they're going to need to balance out that reality with like what's happening on the corner right now and who's making something on the corner right now. And so I think there's hope for the sort of local aspect of this, whether it's a sugary, shitty tequila and whatever drink, tequila and strawberries drink, but like, fine if it's made by the guy who I know lives on the other block, and also struggles with the rat problem in our alley. That's the kind of stuff people seem to love about craft beer. It's just made by him. Did you know that his mom once in a while serves her cookies in the brewery? And did you see him there with his? I just talked to him. He was sweeping out the sidewalk, sweeping the sidewalk and shoveling snow, and people just loved that about craft beer. And that's actually, as much as I liked the sort of artisanal production side of craft beer, the thing that consumers seem to be more interested in was always the sort
local
of
manufacturing,
the connection with the human involved, right? The guy or girl or whoever down the street doing the thing. They looked him in the eyes. They knew that their jeans were getting old and they needed a new pair. And that was a big part of what I liked about it too. And anyway,
How much of this do you think might be economic based and temporary as well? That like inflation has been really tough. People don't feel like they have as much money to spend on. Obviously, the person buying top shelf tequila and Sprite doesn't feel this, but like craft beer really came into its own during the post like recession recovery, right? And I wonder if people's feeling like they have a little bit more expendable income to choose what to do with their leisure money has something to do with that, whereas they're being very austere with their like intoxicant leisure money
parallel
right now.
with growth of middle class as well.
Right.
So yeah, definitely if you have more in the way of expendable income, you feel as though you can treat yourself more frequently and to higher value stuff. You see how much is being sold in Asia in the way of the highest value alcoholic beverages. They're basically buying out bourbon like you can't believe.
Yeah.
Have been buying some of the most
wine.
expensive wines.
Yeah, Burgundy and
it's 90s America.
Middlebrow.
But on the other hand, just as we're into this conversation and the motivations for people choosing what to drink and especially what brands and cost concerns, 95% of beer sold worldwide still falls into Heineken, Budweiser, Stella Artois, yellow light beer.
Yeah.
Why?
Coldplay.
I don't
was
think
all yellow.
I don't think it's necessarily just financial. I think it's that people just want something refreshing to drink generally. We're not always making conscious decisions what to buy
you don't
and to
have that
drink
much
as an
bandwidth
experience.
mentally, to
Totally.
think about it.
My first beer may be whatever looks just so totally enticing up on that list, and my second may as well, and then it's just going to be pale ale. We still just have the need to have something thirst quenching, and that is the vast majority of people. Not everybody wants to make every beverage and every food a memorable experience.
Yeah, the truth is no one ever cared, actually. Like,
Absolutely.
The huge majority of people never cared.
It was us going, it was me going, I can't get a good selection of beer in my liquor store in Vancouver, so I'm going to start home brewing. And then I started making beers no one's ever tried, no one's ever heard of, and handing it out to my friends, and they're going, holy crap, what is this? These types of beers are available in a ton of different places. And now we can make them here. So we can add that level of experience, that culinary art to a culture, and people will find it who want to find new experiences. But the vast majority of people just want an ethanol delivery system.
For sure.
They want seltzer. They want something that is mindless. Look at sales through convenience stores. A lot of people don't buy their stuff consciously through large liquor stores, even large grocery stores. They'll buy the groceries at the grocery store, ignore the liquor aisle, and just stop at the local 7-Eleven or convenience store and just choose whatever they have there based on convenience and that it's cold and they only have to carry it a block and a half rather than 6 blocks from the grocery store. A lot of motivating experiences behind why people buy stuff, and it's almost always based on just ethanol delivery.
Or hand-to-mouth delivery, right? Like, that's why NA is growing and fine, because people can have those same experiences that they have in life if they're just doing this hand-to-mouth all night and talking to their friends. And this is why I think NA has a future, actually.
Interesting. Yeah,
Sorry, I think we're here for the people that aren't like that, though. We're here for the people that want to know, like, meet the person who's sweeping up in front of their shop that happens to make the beer. Like, that's what majority of the people, I mean, all the people sitting in this room and most of the people that listen to this show are here to engage those people. And I know I said earlier maybe that next generation doesn't care about that as much. Maybe they don't right now, but like enough people from each generation will care about that type of stuff. And maybe it's not going to sustain 9,500 breweries, but it will still
Maybe 5,900.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's great.
4,400 to go.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, we're here for the people that care more deeply about it, and like, I don't know, if that's all
an economy around it.
if that's all the market really is for a lot of that stuff, then so be it. But
Yeah.
authenticity still matters, and we're here for people that love
Yeah,
authenticity.
I think brick and mortar meeting places, public houses, are a human need, and I think they're not going to go anywhere. I mean, people want to go out and actually see somebody, other people, whether they know them or they don't know them. You know,
we talked about bars that exist for 400 years. You know,
right?
so-
Yeah.
Right.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, but it will be interesting
Hell.
to see, in this work, as people do get more and more disconnected, what do they rely on to kind of help make that decision for them? And it is interesting. I mean, I think whenever I go online, I see what I think is like a whole new era of like late night infomercials, but they're coming at you like all the time.
Yeah.
Like anytime one of those things starts with, I am completely obsessed with, it's like, oh, this is going to be an infomercial that people laugh about in like 10, 15 years.
Saturday Night Live skits.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and that's like all the time. I mean, just today, somebody was talking about like how bad movie popcorn butter was, and his big thing was like, and butter flavor. I mean, what is even that? And this guy was supposed to be like a health. He was, a younger. I'm saying kid, but he was, I think he was like the wellness minister or something is what he called himself. And I was like, that's probably like the healthiest like element of that whole popcorn thing, And people are like, "Oh my God, the flavor is like it's so bad for you." It's like, ugh, they're trying to poison us, and it's like, wow, you're dealing with so much. It's just
well, there's
diacetyl
maybe
just
that's part
like
of it,
thrown into it.
too. There's just so much fatigue in general of just so much stuff all the time. I don't know if you have a smartphone now, but if you look at that thing, there's always stuff coming at you. And like and that bleeds into like how much energy you have to like make other decisions.
I've got a feature phone.
So like when there's kids who maybe they're 10 years younger than I am, but they've spent 10 more years like engaged with a phone. Like I didn't get a phone that actually could sell me anything until I was probably 23. And so, like, just being engaged with a phone that's constantly trying to take your attention, like, you just are exhausted to make decisions. So instead of coming here and looking at that board and being excited, like, oh, there's an ESB, there's that, there's like, I literally saw more images in the last 6 hours than all the people that lived from the dawn of time until 2000. So, like, I'm just going to get the thing I know I like.
Or like whatever
Whatever
Logan
the
Paul
thing I
told me
know
to
I
get.
like.
Yeah.
Can I get a Prime and vodka, please?
It's wild. I hate to like bring up the New York Times because everyone on every side of the political aisle seems to hate them, but they just put out an article. Someone who writes for the New York Times wrote an article about how 3 beers is the new like menu ideal for brew pubs because Meeting House did it and Dan Suarez, is that Dan?
Yeah.
They don't have 3
Meeting
beers.
House was in New York Times?
Yeah, and maybe that Dan Suarez guy. And it's all just like right and sure. And no one wants to make decisions anymore. And everyone's figured out what they like about craft beer at this point. It's maturing, actually. And that's good. It's a good sign. We know that we don't care about these freakish styles. The big bulk of people right now, I might still like that style, and my customers might still like that style, and I can make that decision on my own. But the big bulk of people probably just want a pale ale, a lager, and one other thing, 2 other things, maybe sour and one other thing, and no one cares about saisons. Sorry, Mike.
Damn,
but
right in the heart.
they
don't.
we live that life. But
Meeting House serves one.
Yeah,
I mean, or Val. I mean, if you want to
That's
call
right.
that a saison.
But
I'll take
but
it.
The point here is what you're saying is that decision fatigue is a huge part of this generation's life, and COVID seemed to muddy up the transition, but it probably would have been really natural. And instead, it feels like this abrupt change where, like, people going out right now just don't want to look at a menu with 12 options on it. They want to look at a menu with 4 options on it or 5, and that's enough. And they've all done the craft beer thing, or their friends have, or their parents have, or their older brothers or sisters have, and like they kind of have a sense of what they want, and they don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And even though again we are not talking necessarily to those people, we need to be cognizant of those people if we want our businesses to be businesses and not just garage.
I didn't say we're not here.
Basement projects.
We're not here for them. Also,
Totally. Exactly. We need both, right? But the really insightful thing you're sort of saying right now is decision fatigue is enormously. It's not just not decision fatigue at bars. It's decision fatigue in life.
Yeah.
And it's leading to decision fatigue at bars, and you're like, sure, I'll take the lager and I'll take the wine that's at the top of your menu. You know, that's what we see.
Right.
That's what we see. We see we sell more wine than beer now, frankly, and all the wine that we sell is basically the first wine that we list in the menu.
Right.
Do you change that up because you're like, oh, we're running
Yes,
low.
absolutely.
We're running low on
Absolutely.
the brow
Every
flank.
single, almost every 3 days. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with wine, it's a great example of that, and I think it's a better example of it than beer because beer is so familiar to everyone. It is one thing I like about beer, and I've said it on this show in the past, is one of the things that always was interesting to me about beer and that I didn't want beer to get up its own ass about was the familiarity people had with it. I didn't want people to take a sip of beer like they do wine and then kind of like look to their friend whether they should like what they're tasting or not. I wanted there to be enough confidence in it. And I think that's why maybe with beer, a little more variety might be like if you just did like one beer at the top, regardless of style, I bet you would get more people than wine being like, oh, that's a stout, or oh, that's a porter, or oh, that's a saison. Probably, yeah, that one. And but versus like oh, that's a
Zin.
rosé Zin.
Yeah.
Like because that one, there's just they're not as confident in.
Totally.
So then they're just gonna be like, okay, you say that's good. Then go for it.
I mean, there's also kind of some room in that case, like if they're in your space to kind of be like, here's what's good, right? Like people want that so bad. Like for the first time, I was talking to my fiance and I'm like, I've worked for myself for 5 years, and before that, I didn't really have a boss. I'm like, I just want someone to tell me what to do. I'm exhausted from having to make every decision. So if I walk into a place, it's basically dealer's choice.
It's the kind of thing
Omakase at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, or you see on every menu as the restaurant industry matures too. You see this on menus increasingly, which is a box around a thing you're supposed to order.
Yeah.
Or the box around the thing that has the highest price, which anchors you to find the second highest price, and that's the thing you're supposed to order, and they know that. And it's a common practice that's been for centuries. But I say centuries, presuming it's true, but at least for decades, right? And this is really important on beer menus and wine menus, is to anchor people and to give them sort of behavioral psychology clues along the way about what they're supposed to order to minimize their decision-making fatigue. And we do that at Bungalow. Sorry if it sounds techie, but you don't have to apologize. You are who you are. I've studied lots of this shit in my life, but secondarily, because you actually just want them to have a good experience, right? Like what I desperately wanted when I got into this was to make people happy, and to make them happy with a cool thing, to make them say, "Holy shit, I want another sip of that." Like it wasn't about food. We didn't have any food at the beginning. We were making beer, and this interest in this industry was like when I had Honker's Ale when I was 16 years old. And I had a Honker's Ale that's what I stole from my neighbor's garage, and my friend stole Ice House, and I had a Honker's Ale, and was just like, after a year of Ice Houses, I was just blown away by that beer, and I just couldn't believe it, and I was so hammered, and because it was so much stronger, and it was just so effing delicious, and then I was like, what else is like this out there? Like, I'll try this, Grolsch just because it looks different, not because I knew anything about Grolsch or German brewing or anything at all. It was just like, this isn't Miller Lite or Bud Light, and I'm going to try Grolsch today. Then I'm going to try St. Pauli Girl. It was just whatever was different, I went after it.
That's kind of how I went, too. It's like, oh, this is different.
This isn't the same packaging.
Yeah.
And that's all, and it was still a jewel, or whatever.
Right.
And what was sort of impactful about, or what maybe continues to be impactful about this is you're looking for some kind of different experience, and over and over again, you'll find yourself chasing, that. But if you can guide someone to that, and make them, maybe you try to find a way to make them feel like they're still chasing it, so they discovered it, but you're guaranteeing that they're going to walk away saying, I got to go back there, or like I got to write them an email, or I got to like follow them on Instagram for the next time they do something that I've never heard of. That's how you grow a customer base, and that's how you grow interest in this special thing that we're all trying to do.
You want to make icebergs, right? Where someone can just like sit on the top of this thing and only know it and be like, this is enjoyable, this is cool, right? For a pun. But then if they drill into it, they're like, oh, there's so much more in here.
Right.
Like there's this beer tastes good is the base layer. Like I want people to enjoy the beer if they never thought about beer before in their life.
Totally.
And then every layer deeper they want to go, there's some sort of meaning like that because like we obsess about this stuff. I think about making beer all day, every day, and how to do it better.
Yeah.
And so it's my job to layer in all these, like anyone who wants to go as deep as possible into the beer and get to the final bottom point of like there's like meaning built like into this, that it's like meant to be a local product that sustains the local agriculture, sustains local economies in the best way possible. It uses all these techniques that make the beer drier, which actually kind of makes it a little healthier maybe. It's just live cultures of yeast that are still in it. Like but you don't need that to enjoy it. But if you sit on there and you bob up and down on the iceberg, you're like, this is pretty cool. Like that. That's how it starts.
I'll try to shut up about this, but I want to give one person credit. A guy named Colin Moody, who said to me, selling wine to me a few years back, this wine doesn't require focus or attention, but it rewards it. And that's a great, those two are words I've kept in my head forever, because I was like, wow, dude, you just said what I think defines our company for 13 years.
Yeah.
Well, at the time it was 11.
That's all good art too,
It was
right?
like, yeah, exactly. It doesn't require it. It makes you happy. If you don't need to pay attention. You don't need to pay super close attention and know everything about this, and you're happy if you're one of those people. But if you do dig down deeper, you're so much happier.
All the best stuff is exactly that. I've had a much more convoluted way of saying it, but yeah, that's exactly what it is. If you just want to enjoy it for what it is, it's great at it. The best ones are the best at both, and there's only a few of them. That's like when you get like the Allagash Whites of the world.
Totally.
When they're just the best at both.
It probably wasn't the wine that Colin was selling me, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
The phrase is perfect.
Yeah.
And to tie it back, like that doesn't exist for seltzer. That's like White Claw doesn't have that. Like
does not.
Even like High Noon, which is like it doesn't have that. Like so, like it'd be interesting to see how the people that came in here that we started this conversation talking about that wanted just
does it get premiumized? Does it get people that can like really get into it, or is it just
do they just abandon
jump
it?
on to the next big thing?
Or
and maybe they do.
Are they just hopping from one?
Seems like teas, like alcoholic teas, are starting to pop off again.
Ben being big, dude. Like
skateboarders.
Sam Adams has made more twisted tea than beer for a long time.
Right.
Our skateboarder staff
twisted,
have been super into twisted teas, getting tattoos of twisted teas.
Right, but that's only been in the past, like 2 3 years?
Going back 3 or 4, but starting then and then since then.
It's also just funny.
Massive.
Like there's part of
been
it
around
is
for a long
funny.
time.
Of course, and like somehow these guys are getting tattoos of it 3 years ago.
Right.
They're like really suddenly into it, and it's a huge point of pride. They got guys we love who work for us for a long time. But like,
you're going to have to cover that up when you're on the floor, bud.
No, yeah. But is it going to be a thing that goes and goes, or is it just?
No,
I don't think so, right? And I think High Noon and all this stuff we're talking about is the same thing. It's like they're going to find their own thing that we found in craft beer, and it might not be an alcoholic beverage, or it might be, but they're going to find a localized experience that's whether it's agricultural based or not, food based or not, and food and beverage based or not. They have to find that, right? Because it's just like twisted tea isn't gonna gratify their soul.
I mean, I guess localized is the only thing I would maybe push back on. I think maybe they need to have a localized outlet for it, but I don't know if it needs to be locally produced, because when I was young, and even now, I mean, there is something about like grass is always greener on the other side. Like, it's cool that, you know, Mickelhenny's all the way out there in San Diego. It's cool that Hill Farmstead and Suarez are so far away, and Scratch is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, that has always been interesting to me, and it goes in the whiskey world as well. You know, it's like, oh, locally produced? I don't know. I mean,
I'm with you, except for the fact that the only reason I agree with that from a personal standpoint.
I'm also doing a little bit of devil's advocate.
But I think, I think the other side of that is, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with it, which is that I think localized becomes more important, actually, only because they
production
have so
localized.
much production, everything about the local side, from production all the way to service and sales, only because everything else in their lives is so unlocalized, and will increasingly become that. There's no we're not backtracking on free trade agreements. Like, we things will be increasingly made in the cheapest place they can be made, and everyone's life will be entirely international for the rest of time. Until some massive revolution happens, like international revolution happens. But like
the Matrix.
Exactly. If that never happens, there needs to be some connection to your neighbors, and like, this is such a ripe place for it. Is the food, and the thing that you do on a day-to-day basis is your food and your beverage. And that's the devil's advocate back, which I don't obviously know if I wonder turn in that direction.
The kind of arcane legal structures that surround beer in the United States help local producers.
I think they help.
That like. Amazon doesn't really sell alcohol that much, which is crazy, because they could probably make a bunch of money. It seems like that's not worth the hassle to them.
The crazy thing was the laws were written kind of intending for them to be difficult and convoluted and frustrating and make you want to bang your head, because in one county it's this way and in one state it's that way and stuff like that.
Right.
They gave it in the state's hands just to make it
You're a
little
states'
bit
rights guy.
Convoluted. No, I'm just saying that.
Just messing with you. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you
Right.
agree. Yeah. Whatever you think about states' rights, I guess I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, also a stage rights.
Big states' rights guy.
I had a couple stage rights guys.
So, but I think it has helped alcohol.
I think unquestionably.
Quite a bit.
And I think it will continue to. I don't. Doesn't see
unless it gets broken down. I mean, the 3 tiers are getting chipped away at.
Sure.
And but food is less affected by that kind of infrastructure, legal infrastructure.
Sure.
Yeah.
And food is even more localized in the sense that we're using the term than alcohol.
It seems bifurcated, though. Like, the world that we exist in is certainly more localized, and we care about it. But there's also more processed food.
Yeah,
and
I think we're
food
heading
like
more towards
substance than there's ever
rebirth of Wonder Bread is like what I see. Like, people
It's
just
ebbs
like
and flows. Right?
Oh, because Wonder Bread was seen as like high tech, you know,
right?
And I think that's what people see now. Oh, this is high tech bread. This is
or greens,
you know,
right?
or whatever,
Whatever
it is. But it's like not better for you, and it's going to be seen as not better for you. But it's got some sort of thing happening to it, or maybe it's better because it's, you know, got really cute packaging and it's delivered right to you once a month and it's on a subscription service. I don't know, but I do think there's more of this like bullshit shown as superior when it's not. I mean, getting back to this wellness guru guy, it ended up being an ad because he's like, what's a much better option is, and he pulled up like, you know, wellness pops or something like that. Yeah. And I went on their site because I was really pissed off at this point.
And you bought a bunch of them.
And
they're delicious.
And they're great. And that person was me, and now this is a sponsored ad. No, I looked at the ingredients, and it had, like, you know, natural flavoring. And I was like, they're using diacetyl too. They're using the same
That's amazing.
thing.
And butter-flavored pops.
You know?
But, you know, you say all this, and I agree with you because we see it in the people selling us stuff to sell in our restaurant, trying to sell us stuff to sell in our restaurant, which they don't get very far, but you see Green City Market just getting effing huge. Every year it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And Logan Square Market getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and people getting more and more into farmers markets. So on the one hand, you know, people are into subscription services and people are into like techie foods, and they want to get like a microgreen, like, you know, pouch to put in, like it lasts them like 40 days, and they like have an insane like amount of protein in their bodies, and they're like super stoked to tell Joe Rogan about it. But at the same time, you see like Green City Market blowing up, just getting bigger and bigger, and all over TikTok, you know? So like, I don't know what that means, if there's a bifurcation in the next generation, or if it's that you see people interested in both sides of this story, which is health and wellness and economic and climate
And
sustainability. Yeah. Well, like that's what sustainability, right? It's like, what can be delivered to me in the most efficient way, so that it's like it actually does scratch the climate sustainability itch, but it also is about laziness. In the end, it's about laziness. Like I want to sit in my house and consume a pro climate agenda and local agenda,
or
and
be
never leave my
placated
house.
that I am.
I also love Taylor Swift.
Even
it's
though
the
I'm
feeling.
not.
It's
I
the
want to
feeling.
feel like I am.
Exactly. It's like the feeling of local craft beer and local farms and my food choices and all my day-to-day choices, but whether it's true or not doesn't matter. And I think you'll see.
Yes.
But it only matters in that like half of their life has to actually feel real, and half of it, or whatever percent, 75% of it has to feel can feel fake, as long as 25% of it feels real. Whatever the case, you'll probably increasingly see this, and that'll affect.
And you see it all the time.
alcoholic
I mean, you
industry.
see ads from giant companies like Xfinity, like glorifying doing nothing, like saying like they make these terrible things where it's like, now you can stay in and not do anything and get this order, and it's a video of a family of four sitting on a sofa, all on separate devices, smiling, and have like food delivered to them. And I was like, that is,
Right,
and it's
kitchen.
not ironic.
Yeah.
It's not ironic. And I was like, oh my God, that's like horrifying to me that you have just like four people completely independent. But that's what's happening. And it's like, what's it called? Like how a lot of car ads are really meant for people who've already bought the car to feel good about their purchase. It's made for people to feel good about their lifestyle to keep doing it, is the way I see it. And it's like, that's what farmers markets, they don't have that amount of marketing might behind them as Xfinity
They can't
and
compete with that.
Amazon
No.
and all these people just telling them like, no, man, just like, it's easier for us to just, it's better if it's just sent to you and you sit on your sofa.
You're a good
That's
person.
the good,
You're a good person if
You're
you
a
do that.
good person if you do that. And it's like, that's what just terrifies me. But
That's
on
the
that
that's
note,
the
no.
75. That's the
Yeah.
75-25 breakdown.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there,
yeah.
which is we're okay. We feel okay because we're pursuing the 25%, but the truth is we need to find a way to live with the 75%, and actually, the only way we can survive is
Right.
if we know how to talk to the 75%
Sure.
too.
I mean, hey, at least the 0.0001% that the 75% look to are actually out there doing
Yeah.
stuff, making
This is
them
not
feel
a math
bad.
podcast.
That's right.
Like, if that makes sense. No, but like, at least I think it is a positive that the 75% look towards the 0.001% of the people who are actually doing it. The pizza guy, and I should know his name because he's like the most famous person.
Oh yeah, who
What's
came
his-
to our place?
Yeah, what's his name?
Portnoy.
Portnoy.
Yeah.
Like
Dave.
Everyone
Dave
sits there and
Portnoy.
watches him on TikTok, but that MFer is the one who's actually going to all the pizza places and trying all the pizza places
And a ton of people-
giving all the pizza places.
A ton of people get all their sort of psychic utility from watching him do that. They don't need to go try anything. They now know how to talk to their friends about pizza and what's good in this city and that city and the other city.
That's
They
messed
don't
up,
need to
dude.
actually go
So
ever.
I'm wrong.
We're
They
already
don't
in the
then
Matrix.
Well,
looking at
no,
like,
no,
oh,
no,
now I want to.
No. We definitely saw an increase in business shortly after he came for a couple of weeks, and but it always was a big day. I don't think he had an effect, but like but I think it's like the classic thing where like. This is probably like a effing Freakonomics or one of those guys, whatever the hell else their books, Tipping Point, those guys. But like the behavioral guys were like poppy for a while. they all talked about this thing where like, if you said you were going to do X, you already got like 80% of the benefit of having done X, and you're fine not doing it. You don't need to follow through with the thing you said you were going to do because you said it out loud.
It's
and
like
this is what people who
Zoolander.
watch Portnoy and they're like, man, that fucking place looks great. Anyway. All right,
8.4.
Time for
That's
bed.
probably the best pizza I've ever had.
And then you're like, I guess I'll go to bed now, and tomorrow I'll wake up and go back to the office.
That is like Zoolander. He's like, just thinking about helping those kids is the most rewarding experience of my
exactly.
life.
And then like once a month, they go out with their friends and they get to say, best tavern pizza in Chicago is Uncle Kim. Second best is Middlebrow, and that's what I know. And like Uncle Kim's cures for 3 extra days. You know, it's just. Kim's uncle, God damn it. And anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But you know, this kind of shit. This is what people get off on. That's all they needed. They just needed someone to tell them what to think
and rank it.
and rank how they
Has to be
can rank
ranked.
it. And like, but it's okay because there are still the 25% who keep all of our businesses here alive,
Right.
including Seibel, right? Because these are the people who are going out and keeping my business and Chris's business alive and Mike's business alive, and these are the people who are working for us. And you know, it's like it's the 25% that's kind of critical to us. The 75% actually helps the 25% keep doing what they're doing, because the 25% sees themselves as different from the 75%. And they need to go out. They better go out and they better consume this thing, and they better actually have a real experience so they can actually talk about it. And F this person living in the suburbs who doesn't know anything about anything and is in the meager 75%. You know?
Right. And just has the same exact opinions as a million other people who also watch Dave Portnoy.
Totally.
Yeah. All right.
You gotta get him to come have your tavern, your
You know what we
cafeteria.
should
hell yeah.
have on
Great pizza style.
is Colin from Meeting House, because that
For sure.
I've never heard of a bar get more just like it's just be more in the zeitgeist of the beer community ever than Meeting House
Without
in
doing
Philadelphia.
anything yet.
Yeah.
But that said,
So fast.
They're on the East
so much
Coast.
so fast.
They're on the East Coast. Huge difference.
Huge difference.
It
They
actually
are in Philadelphia.
I know, but
mean,
but Philadelphia is so on
like 4
in
3
right now,
hours
man.
from-
And also, it's East Coast, and also coming from where? Tired Hands and
yeah, Tired Hands and McKellar.
McKellar.
Keller.
Right.
PR sort of does the work. You don't even need a PR person at that point. So not to
Right.
say you shouldn't get them on here to say what the hell's going on. But
That's
also,
kind of what I
You
want
heard
to
it here
talk
first.
about.
Pete
What
hates
is
Meeting
happening?
No, man, I haven't. I'm stoked
I
about
asked
it.
him. I asked him. I was like, people were talking about you in
Yeah, I'm
Chicago, and he's
stoked
like,
about it.
he was like, what?
Yeah.
They
well,
are?
honestly,
I was
Lee
like,
Monster,
yes.
Lee McComb, Lee McComb, he was telling me about him, and I looked him up, and I was like, this place looks effing amazing.
Yeah.
I got to get out there.
Yeah, Carl Granstrom from Omnipollo last week dropped Meeting House's name, and I was like,
That's just gotta
what?
be. That's had to have been just a straight Keith Shore, like other art guy.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
point
still,
is,
it's like in the
it's
international
nuts.
beer zeitgeist, you know.
Yeah, and it's just like a little. It's a restaurant with some house beers.
Yeah, which is
mean,
actually the future of effing brew pubs, man. It's like 3 beers. It's what you need, and
According to the New York Times, your Bible.
We'll probably come back a little bit. from that,
absolutely
right?
my Bible. It's all a pendulum. Man. It's all a pendulum, and then soon we'll need 30, and then we'll need 3 again.
I agree. I agree
And I'll be
100%
dead.
with the pendulum. It
Yeah.
just goes
Well,
like this.
yeah.
Because if they had that must suck because they suck. I'm the new generation.
That's right. Just
Dun,
yeah.
dun,
Oh
dun,
yeah,
dun,
pale.
dun,
Yeah.
dun,
We're gonna do
dun.
pale 1, pale 2, pale 12.
Exactly. We were just there. We were there a couple of years ago, except it was IPA
Yeah,
instead of.
that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. All right.
Good talk, guys.
I think it's time to get out of here. Oh, it's time to get out of here. Is there anything that you would like to say before we leave, Mike?
No, thank you everyone for listening, and thank you Keith and Pete for coming on.
A pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure.
Keith, anything you would like to say before we leave?
Absolutely nothing.
Oh, okay. Taking the Jerry Nelson approach. All right.
Jerry Nelson would have just said nothing.
Yeah, it's true. It's
Just sat
been
there in
quiet.
silence,
Yeah.
Well, what do I mean? I would say try As Was Brewing.
All right.
Best they sound in the city, the
That's what
country.
you- okay. There you
Top
are.
2 at least.
Yeah.
To Middlebrow.
I will say next week. Oh, first I want to thank our guests, Pete Ternes. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
And
Nailed it.
Keith Lemcke.
Lemcke.
Lemcke. And you, Mike. And
I
you,
want to thank
Serge.
you, Chris and Serge.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
you guys.
Next week, we're going to have people are going to be excited. It's our most requested repeat show. It's
Smoking the Bandit revisited.
yes, by far our best performing show of all time. No, it is Jeopardy. We're redoing Jeopardy. See if I can. I'm returning champ,
Yeah.
so we'll see if I can keep that.
This game was rigged.
Hey, we still have the same quizmaster or Alex Trebek or whatever.
Oh,
you
your
wanna
employee is the quizmaster and you won. I wonder how that works out.
go. Exactly. He knows how to keep his job.
That's right. As he should. Good job. Steven did a great job.
So
last
it'll
time.
be
It was
fun.
really
So it was a lot of fun last time. So we'll be doing that. And I don't have anything else.
And
to
Shayna
say.
will be the guest, right?
Shayna will be the contestant. I think is the word you were looking for.
Sure.
But good times.
Well,
I had
we're
a
all contestants.
Great conversations, and I think that's about it. We'll see everyone else next week. Until then, so long.
Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.